A wealthy aristocratic couple, Anne and Bob Fredericks, are taking a bicycle ride while their servants are preparing for an upcoming social gathering in their house. Among the maids is a woman named Maria. Everything has been perfect by the time the guests arrive. When Anne's came, the first thing she did was to make sure dinner was ready. A personal image maker ensured and looked appropriately elegant. Today their home will be visited by lords and other noble persons. Maria handed Madame a gift from her husband. It was a magnificent necklace. Soon Stephen, Bob's eldest son, arrived. Besides him, the couple has 2 more children. Stephen asked about the occasion for the celebration. Maria replied that a dinner for 12 persons was planned for that evening. Bob, who is into collecting, wants to sell a rare painting to obtain funds before a certain deal is finalized. It turned out that Bob is divorced from his first wife, Stephen's mother. She is a very wealthy woman, but Bob's pride won't allow him to borrow money from her. Bob asked the son about the progress of his book. Stephen said he lacked inspiration, but the publisher has been waiting for a draft of the novel for a while. Meanwhile, David Morgan, a wealthy man who authenticates antique items, prepares a speech on his way to visit, and looks splendid in her expensive evening gown. When she realized that the dinner is set for 13 people due to Stephen joining them, she thought it was bad luck. To rectify this misunderstanding, and decided to present Maria as an aristocrat. As a maid, she wouldn't be able to dine with the aristocrats. Maria thought it was a bad idea because she isn't good at lying, but Anne didn't accept any objections. She asked her personal image maker to find a dress and shoes for Maria. Soon the Lord Mayor of London arrived with the husband. The owners of the house gave them a warm welcome. Bob is anxious about the upcoming deal, but there is still no news. The guests gradually arrive. Everyone present is making small talk while the image maker tidies up Maria. She is quite nervous. Bob shows the painting to the appraiser. After the evaluation, it will find a worthy place in a museum, and tells Maria to come out, but she still hasn't put on her attire, and instructs the maid not to talk too much, smile excessively, eat too much or drink excessively during dinner. These are signs of bad manners. Meanwhile, Bob is sweet-talking the girl Fanny, who is his French tutor. Finally, Maria is ready to join the guests. Before doing so, she recites aloud all the rules to follow in high society. The guests immediately take notice of the spectacular woman, having no idea who she really was. David Morgan asks Stephen who the lady was. Stephen claims she is supposedly a very influential woman, the Countess of Asturias from the House of Bourbon. However, according to Stephen, she keeps this a secret. The man became even more interested and approached Maria, who was very flustered. Maria doesn't know how to behave, but she tries to play her role and maintain small talk. David gallantly kissed her hand and introduced himself. Maria said she was supposedly an old friend of Anne's. Finally, the homeowners and the guests took their seats at the table. Typical small talk, characteristic of aristocrats, has begun. The appraiser secretly flirts with Anne, suggesting they have dinner together tomorrow. However, she wants to save her marriage. When one of the maids got distracted by Maria, she accidentally spilled water on David. Maria began to scrub the stain out of habit. Bob turned it into a joke. Maria's behavior at the table wasn't that of a titled woman. However, David, tired of the social life, found her conversations amusing. Jane Millerton, being divorced, openly flirts with David, who turns his attention to Maria at the first opportunity. Bob notices that Maria is drinking a lot and fears she'll give away their secret. Meanwhile, Maria is engrossed in conversation with David. He shared that he dreamed of being an artist in his childhood, but life didn't go as planned. Throughout the evening, David flirts with Maria, making Anne and Bob nervous. Of course, Maria couldn't hide her rough manners, but David even liked it. He sympathized with the fact that Maria was sincere and open, unlike aristocratic women. Seeing that a boy couldn't cut the roast meat on his plate, Maria immediately rushed to help him, causing confusion among the guests, and immediately made small talk to divert everyone's attention. Stephen flirted with the father's French tutor, but she responded very reservedly. Meanwhile, David compliments Maria, which flusters her. Stephen directly tells Fanny that he's aware of her affair with his father. She tries to deny it, but Stephen sees through her lies. After getting drunk, Stephen decides to make a toast. He declares that he's supposedly engaged to Fanny. Everyone starts applauding, and once again decides to shift the focus of the guests and suggests listening to the boy's piano performance. He is a young prodigy and gives concerts. His mentor is a musical genius who never speaks, taking advantage of everyone being distracted, and talks to Maria privately. According to Anne, Maria is not an aristocrat and will never become one. Her terrible manners give her away, so she should leave immediately. When the guests leave, Bob and Ann wake up drunken Stephen. They don't understand how he could behave that way. Stephen is too drunk to realize what's happening. Before going to bed, Ann resents the fact that Stephen almost ruined the evening. But Bob thinks everything went well, especially since the guests were impressed with Maria, and couldn't sleep for a long time. She had a lot to think about. In the morning, Stephen, suffering from a hangover, receives a call from David Morgan. He's charmed by Maria and asks Stephen for her phone number. Of course, David has no idea that Maria has been in the house the whole time, fulfilling her duties as a maid. Stephen asks Maria to write down her number on a piece of paper and dictates it to David. It was very difficult for Bob to part with his beloved painting. Stephen decided not to tell the father and stepmother about David's call. During a family car trip, Maria received a message from David. He wrote that he's been thinking only about her since that evening, and found out about this, realizing that they were in a delicate situation, while the rest were playing golf, and asked Maria if she had met with David after that evening. Maria assured her she hadn't, and wondered how Maria had managed to captivate David in such a case. To address the issue, Ann took Maria's phone and messaged David, asking him not to bother her. However, he persisted and asked her out. In the evening, Maria put Ann and Bob's children to bed, all the while continuing to exchange messages with David, and believes they should tell David the truth, but Bob wants David to authenticate the painting first. Otherwise, he might think they're all liars. Maria secretly took a beautiful dress from Ann's wardrobe and met David near a movie theater. The man turned out to be a romantic and told Maria that he knows who she really is. Maria assumed he knew she was a maid. However, David was referring to what Stephen had told him earlier. David is convinced that Maria holds many titles and riches. Maria in turn admitted that she has a daughter. But it didn't matter to David at all because Maria seemed like the perfect woman to him, and did meet with the appraiser after all. Her relationship with the husband had cooled down, and she missed the romance. Maria called her daughter, who is a figure skater, via video link. Maria said she had never been this happy. When Ann returned home, she acted as if nothing had happened. Bob said that Maria had left work early today and seemed happy. The spouses realized that their maid was dating David. In order to remedy the situation, they urgently set out to find Maria. Meanwhile, Maria was walking arm in arm with David to a restaurant. They didn't suspect that Ann and Bob were spying on them right now. Bob suggested firing Maria, but his wife didn't want to do that because Maria impeccably handled her duties, and thought that Maria wasn't very attractive, so she wouldn't be able to charm David. However, Bob disagreed. He believed that despite her unremarkable appearance, Maria is very charming. Meanwhile, Maria and David were enjoying each other's company. This was all new for Maria. No one had ever courted her like this before. Bob decided to do some reconnaissance, but it had to be done discreetly. David gave Maria a gift. They were very expensive earrings. Seeing it, Maria was delighted. It was more expensive than anything she had ever had. The spouses are still pondering their course of action. However, they have not come to any decision. Before going to bed, Ann had a video call with her therapist. She just needed to talk it out, and was hurt that she had fought for everything in her life, including men. Yet a simple maid was able to effortlessly conquer a rich man. This makes Ann feel vulnerable and lonely. When David asked his beloved about her secret dream, she confessed that she wanted happiness for her daughter and to invent half a packet of baking powder. Maria cooks a lot and has never used a whole packet of baking powder. Of course, David was a little perplexed. He had never met a woman like Maria and was eager to meet her family, and is trying to bring warmth back into her relationship with the husband, but he has lost interest in it. Naturally, Ann is upset. Suddenly, Bob received a call from his secretary. The money for the painting hasn't been received yet, and Bob's accounts are empty. A bit more, and the bank will seize the house. Leaving the hotel, Maria rode the elevator with a maid. It was strange for her to be in the role of a madam, not a servant. When Maria returned to the Fredericks' house, and demanded explanations from her, eventually Maria confessed that she took her dress, and didn't hide her dissatisfaction. Tearfully, Maria said she loves David, but Ann doesn't want to hear anything about it and threatened her. If Maria doesn't end this relationship, Ann will stop paying for her daughter's education. During the day, Maria performed her duties as a maid. She continues to receive messages from David, genuinely believing that he knows about her background. But another servant disagrees with her. Stephen, who overheard their conversation, got inspired for a new book. This novel is titled The Maid, and continues to see the appraiser, while Bob dates Fanny. The spouses are unfaithful to each other. Soon a party was held to celebrate Bob and Ann's youngest son's birthday. Maria entertained the children dressed as a fairy, and immediately suspected that the maid was drunk. Maria continues to see David regularly, who takes her for a ride in his luxury car. Maria feels like she's in a fairy tale. She couldn't have dreamed of this before. Maria didn't suspect that Bob, who was spending his leisure time with the appraiser, saw her and David together. David brought his beloved to a luxurious mansion, telling her he wanted to announce something important to everyone. Seeing it, Maria became very nervous and asked David to run away together, but he intends to see it through. Maria said she can't communicate with people like them. David thought that she meant they are beneath her socially. He said it's the 21st century, and prejudices should be discarded. Of course, Maria is still convinced that her beloved knows who she truly is. Seeing the maid, Anne's children rushed into her embrace. Later, David told Bob that his painting is authentic. The aristocrats decided to celebrate this event. Maria tries to fit into aristocratic society, and definitely doesn't like the situation that has developed because it has gone too far. David constantly said that Maria is perfect, and made sarcastic remarks about it. When David asked how she met Maria, Bob, instead of his wife, said that the story of their friendship is a secret. Maria in turn said that she is a maid in this family, and immediately turned it into a joke. Later, and reminded Maria that she's just a maid. Maria insists that David truly loves her, but doesn't believe it, thinking that the world of aristocracy is not for Maria. Maria stuck to her opinion and left. Another maid understood that Maria had fallen in love. She couldn't hide her happiness. Stephen finished his provocative book about a maid. Perhaps it will become a new bestseller. And supposedly met David by chance in town and tried to match him with Jane Millerton, the same divorced woman. However, David is not interested in any women other than Maria, and realized she couldn't delay it any longer and told David the truth. Maria is upset that she's no longer receiving messages from David. In the evening, she called him herself, but he didn't answer. Then Maria left him a voicemail, asking to call back. The next day, Maria became even more worried, thinking that David might be in trouble, but the other maids are sure he simply abandoned her. Maria doesn't believe that, as David loved her so much. Her colleagues advised her not to write to David anymore. If he truly loves her, he'll come. Bob continues taking French lessons from Fanny. They clearly enjoy each other's company, and approached Maria and tells her not to worry about what happened. Maria tries to hold on as best she can, but her heart is broken. A strong wind rose in the city, and it carried away Stephen's draft of the book. Soon David visited the family's house for business. He didn't even notice Maria in her maid uniform. She was still wearing the earrings he had given her. Later, Maria took it off. Unlike all these aristocrats, she lives in a modest apartment, but Maria plans to leave this place behind forever. On the street, she met David and helped him gather the pages of his book. Stephen hugged Maria and they bid farewell, wishing each other luck. Maria left, and soon David joined Stephen, asking about the ending of his book. Everyone likes happy endings. Maria is on her way to a new life. From now on, she will love and value herself.